I hear you. Hello?
Bolton should face criminal problems for allegedly publishing classified information. Trump was saying that any conversation with him was classified and thus none of it should have been able to be revealed in John Bolton's book. That then led to a grand jury investigation of John Bolton in the District of Columbia's federal court. It resulted in no charges. So what this is there a link to that situation? This is official that we know has a lot of classified information over his long tenured service in government. So John Bolton now being under investigation again after not being in government for several years. We are going to have a lot of questions going forward. I've reached out to John Bolton's attorney, who handled his issues through the first grand jury investigation, and CNN reached Bolton directly. This morning, Bolton said he was unaware of this FBI activity and was looking into it further. John.
All right, Caitlin Polans for us digging on this in Washington as this information continues to come in. One point Caitlin's making there. John Bolton had high-profile lawyers the first time around. He himself, a very accomplished lawyer as well. Just to keep in mind, those critics and supporters of him would both, I think, concede that point.
Yeah, and remember, it was since Trump came into office, he also stripped Bolton of a security clearance as well. This is not the first time that they've gone after him. I remember at the time, Bolton, I think he kind of laughed about it because it wasn't as if he was looking for going to be leaning on that anytime soon. But let's continue covering this breaking news. Andy McCabe is sticking with us. Megan Hayes, David Urban, Caitlin Polans here as well. David, I was just looking back to just last week because John referenced it, which is the president was very unhappy with John Bolton and what he was saying, his take and his analysis of the president's meeting with Putin.
We're back with the Fox News Alert. We're just learning the FBI agents have raided the Maryland home of former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton. It happened at 7 a.m. this morning.
Shortly after the raid began, FBI Director Kash Patel posting on X, quote, "No one is above the law. FBI agents on a mission."
David Spunt joins us now with more on this breaking news. Hey, David.
Hey, guys, not much we can say at this point, but information will continue to develop. As you mentioned, about 7 o'clock this morning, FBI agents raided Ambassador Bolton's home. Notable, we're being told by two government sources that they are looking for classified documents as part of a potential leak investigation. We're told that Ambassador Bolton is not in custody. He's not under arrest, but is notable they are at his Maryland home right now. We don't know how many agents are there. We're waiting to get a picture of the scene coming in right now, but we're told Ambassador Bolton, who was just on TV on another network a couple days ago talking about the Russia-Putin-Trump summit, is now under FBI investigation. Now, I want to be clear, these are long, and we're looking at some live photographs right now in Bethesda. That's clearly the road where Ambassador Bolton lives, and you can see some police cars outside there. But, this is going to be a long process. We saw the raid of former Trump advisor Roger Stone's home down in Florida several years ago. Eventually, he went to trial. We saw famously in August of 2022, exactly 3 years ago, a little bit more than 3 years ago, the raid on Mar-a-Lago. That still has the FBI in hot water. That's a little bit of a different situation as it was a former president, but it deals with classified documents, guys.
So I did not realize this, but there was a probe going on when President Trump was in office last time because John Bolton wrote a book and he violated his NDA, the president said, in doing it. And he felt as though there were classified information in that book. The probe dropped when Joe Biden became president. So is this picking up where that left off, David?
It's possible. I don't know with 100% certainty, but it is notable, guys, that John Bolton, Ambassador Bolton's security clearances were stripped earlier this year by President Trump. Tulsi Gabbard, the director of national intelligence, took that security clearance away. They had concerns. The administration had concerns about Ambassador Bolton still being able to access some of these documents and have some of those security clearances. It's also notable that John Bolton had a security detail as well. Because of the threats from Iran on his life, that security detail, that government federal paid security detail, was also taken away by President Trump. So Bolton was to have to get some private security. So we're looking outside this home right now in Bethesda, Maryland. We're told that Ambassador Bolton's being cooperative. He's not under arrest, not in custody at this point. But still notable, 7 o'clock on a Friday morning, that the FBI all of a sudden is knocking on the door of John Bolton's home. And I also will say it's important that, this is not just the FBI able to do this. A judge has to sign off on this. There are other layers involved here. It's not just the FBI says, let's go to John Bolton's house tomorrow morning and see if he has any classified documents. There are certainly more procedures in there. A judge and others would have had to sign off on this, as well as people at the Justice Department, presumably Attorney General Pam Bondi. No comment right now, though, from the Justice Department. No comment from the FBI as well.
So this started 40 minutes ago, and so agents are still, we believe, in the house right now going through things?
That's what we're told. Yes, absolutely. They're going through things. It's not clear if he's still on scene, if he's in the house while this is happening. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes the subject who owns the home or owns the property is not there. We know during the raid at Mar-a-Lago, President Trump was not even there at all. It was the summer, and he doesn't live at Mar-a-Lago in the summer. So it's not clear if Ambassador Bolton was even home. We're working to find that out. But we know that he was just this is his primary residence. This is where he lives. He does TV appearances. He's still out and about. So it's unclear exactly where he is right now, but I'm just told he's not in custody. This deals with classified records, potential classified records. And, at which point we'll see down the line if a grand jury feels there is enough evidence for charges. But this is really the first step in what could be a long process, because they have to bring, first of all, agents have to sift through this information, go through all of this information. That could take weeks, that could take months. Then they present that information to a grand jury. A grand jury would say we have what's called a true bill, which means an indictment, and then the court proceedings happen. So I don't want to get over my skis and predict that that's going to happen. May not happen, but it's still notable that this is going on right now.
In these raids, the New York Post is reporting that they busted into his home in Bethesda, Maryland. In a raid, normally, do they have, how do they get in the house? Would they ring the doorbell first and Bolton would come to the door?
Correct. Yeah, that's usually what it is. I mean, they would ring the doorbell. I mean, that's the proper way that agents usually handle these situations. There's usually kind of a de-escalation of these things before tensions rise. And sometimes if they need to bust through the door. I've not confirmed that independently that they busted through the door. I'm not sure if it was any sort of ramrod or anything like that. So I don't want to get ahead of it. But that is possible. Yes, they will if they feel that they have probable cause to get inside and need to get inside. I will note we've not heard from Ambassador Bolton yet. I'm sure we will through his attorney or possibly himself. So it's something we're going to watch and see what he has to say. But as of now, this is still going on, 42 minutes or about 45 minutes or so into this on a Friday morning in a busy news cycle here in Washington, D.C.
So, obviously this comes after there's been renewed scrutiny of James Comey, former FBI director, and some of the leaks that came from his office. Do we have any sense that there are other figures that the FBI is looking at as part of this investigation?
Well, we're not clear what this investigation is specifically, but yes, you're right that Fox has reported independently, yes, that agents are looking at James Comey. They're looking at, when I say agents, I should say the Department of Justice, looking at James Comey, looking at James Clapper, looking at John Brennan. Clapper was the former director of national intelligence, John Brennan, former CIA director. So it's not clear if this is related to that, because John Bolton kind of hung in different circles, and Comey and Clapper, he was on the inside during the first Trump administration as his national security advisor. So I'm not exactly sure if this is related to that, but it's notable this is related to classified documents. It looks like there was someone there in the front door. I'm not exactly sure who that is when the camera...
We were seeing FBI agents walk in, and then someone walked in. It looked like a female in civilian clothes, but it looked like she was holding papers, so maybe she works for the government.
Could be, yeah, could be, exactly.
Thank you so much.
No problem. When
Thanks,
we find
David.
out more, we'll let you know. You bet.
John Bolton was a contributor here for years. He was a vital member of the Bush administration. And when he walked in to help President Trump, there was a lot of optimism there would be a good match. They did some good things. He said, I was never proud of the president that when he walked away from the second Kim Jong-un meeting and refused to acquiesce and allowed them to have a nuclear weapon, so he walked out. So, but since that time, he's been an extreme critic, even as late as last night.
I'm Steve Doocy.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
The zoning committee was established.
We're back with the Fox News Alert. We're just learning.
Let's read between the lines. Between the lines, the FBI director, Patel, included Bolton in a list of what he called members of the executive branch deep state. We really know where this thing they go. Let's see those lists. The list of the deep states. Who are those executives? God damn, that's a lot of shit. All right. So, let's backtrack a little bit. So, what we are watching right now is one of, if you go to X, the FBI director Twitter said, "No one is above the law." FBI director Kash Patel wrote on X Friday morning without reference to a specific situation FBI agents mentioned. General Attorney General Pambandi added, "America's safety isn't negotiable. Justice will be pursued, always." So between the lines, so I said Bolton is included in the list of what Kash Patel called members of the executive branch deep states. In January, Trump stripped Bolton's security protection along with those of others' political adversaries. In a foreword to his memoir that published last year, Bolton wrote, "What a mountain of facts demonstrates that Trump is unfit to be president." They don't know that the guy will come back. They are not aware the man is coming back. This was in 2021 after he left office. So flashback. Publication of Bolton memoir was delayed in 2020 as the White House reviewed his content. The administration sued Bolton in federal courts, claiming he breached his contract by failing to complete a pre-publication review for classified information. The Justice Department in 2021, under President Biden, closed its criminal investigation into whether Bolton disclosed classified information in his memoir or not. It's getting steamier, huh? This is a complete vindication. Bolton told Axios at the time they are just giving up. A federal judge allowed Bolton to publish the book, but ruled that he likely published classified material and exposed his country to harm and himself to civil and potentially criminal liability. So he wasn't advised in that direction. And now let's put it in context here. Bolton has faced death threats from Iran after being a fierce critic of the regime. In 2020, an Iranian national was charged in connection with a plot to assassinate Bolton. Now let's go deeper and see. Let's go deeper. First leg. John Bolton prediction for a second time. See, John Bolton, Donald Trump, former national security advisor, is laying out his nightmare scenario for a second time in a foreword to his paperback edition of his memoir, The Room Where It Happens. This was last year. This was January last year. The Room Where It Was Happened. That's the name of the book. Now I'm curious. That's a book I should read. Why it matters, Bolton writes that a mountain of facts demonstrates that Trump is unfit to be president. In the 18-page foreword, The Room Where It Will Happen Again, Bolton worries Trump could put the United States out of NATO, abuse power to exert retribution on political rival, and trigger a constitutional crisis. Yes, he's saying that now, but we ain't seeing it happening. NATO is becoming stronger by the day. He ain't pull out yet, so I don't know. Maybe his pull-out game is not strong. Trump pull-out game is not strong, I think. Bolton reserved his most damning prediction for foreign policy. He wrote that Trump could throw Ukraine under the bus to favor Russian President Vladimir Putin. Is that what is happening? Reunite with North Korea. That's not on the table yet. Maybe. Seek a bad deal with Iran driven by his desire to prove himself a master negotiator. Well, I don't know that's what is happening. So, come again. Indeed, it is a close context between Putin and Xi Jinping, who would be happiest to see Trump back in office, he wrote. I don't think any of them is happy right now. We can argue for Putin on that way. Trump campaign spokesperson Jason Miller told us, for someone who professes to have such great disdain for President Trump, book deal Bolton sure has found a way to grift off the relationship. Let's go deeper. Well. This is the beginning of what the next 2-3 months is going to be like. Let's hear from other network and see how they are covering this shit. MSNBC, is that the right place to go? MSNBC, just like Fox, they are too far apart. Let's look for middle ground here. Even though it's hard to see middle ground in American media. Who's doing? Somebody's doing live. Let's do it. Nah, it's too risky. Anyway, fuck it. Let's go to MSNBC.
Have raided former. We have breaking news just now. FBI agents have raided former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton's Washington, D.C. area home early this morning. A source familiar with the matter tells NBC News that the FBI agents raided Bolton's home in Bethesda, Maryland this morning as part of a, quote, national security investigation in search of classified records. The FBI has not commented, but in a seemingly related post just made on X, FBI Director Kash Patel wrote moments ago, "No one is above the law. FBI agents on mission." We've reached out to National Security Advisor Bolton. He has not responded yet, Claire. We don't know a lot yet. This just happened. The source telling us it's about classified records, perhaps, a national security investigation. But we should note here, John Bolton, who did briefly work for Donald Trump as national security advisor in his first term, has turned into a fierce Trump critic. We just actually, just a few days ago, spoke about him here on this show because he thought that the president's summit in Alaska with Vladimir Putin was going to be a disaster. In fact, even before the summit occurred, he said that Trump had handed Putin a win. In fact, Trump went to social media to criticize Bolton for those comments. And now, a few days later, we have this. We don't know there's a link, but we certainly know this is a president who has promised retribution.
Yeah, it's chilling. It really is. Listen, John Bolton and I disagreed on many things back in the days when I was serving in public office, but I don't think very many people that know John Bolton would argue that his beliefs were intellectually sound. You could disagree with him, and that he gave a lot to this country in terms of time and his intellect and his work ethic. And clearly this is retribution. Clearly this is using the FBI in a way that not only tarnishes the FBI, but it tarnishes our country. I mean, this is what they do in countries where they don't have rule of law. This is what happens when despots take over, like Putin. And John Bolton has always been critical of how, I mean, he about lost it when Trump wanted to invite the Taliban to Camp David. It's chilling. Now, do I think they're ever going to have evidence to convict this man of anything in a court of law with a jury? No, they won't. But they can make him miserable.
Yeah, and Gene Robinson, again, we should stress, we don't know a lot about what's happening here. We saw FBI Director Kash Patel's social media post. John Bolton, former Trump national security advisor turned Trump critic, his home raided in Bethesda, Maryland.
Look, I agree with Claire. I find it difficult, if not impossible, to believe that there's some reason to arrest John Bolton on national security grounds. I found plenty of reason to disagree with John Bolton's positions, with his prescriptions for foreign policy over the years, but this seems to be just blatant, bald-faced retribution because Donald Trump doesn't like him and sees him as having, betrayed him, and so he gets arrested. It is chilling. It is disgraceful, and I doubt, frankly, how many months into the second Trump administration are we? I doubt this is the last time we're going to see this sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen throughout the administration, John, the president, as he had said during the campaign, enacting forms of retribution against people who he felt had crossed him or betrayed him or had been critical of him, and none more so than people who had worked for him before that. We saw that with the members of his previous administration who had their security clearances stripped because for some reason they fell afoul of what the president was saying or doing. And I doubt that John Bolton, it's hard to believe that John Bolton has anything in his home that could incriminate him in some way. But it's also quite possible to think that he is not the last of people that the president would like to see punished in some way for what he sees as disloyalty.
Yeah. Again, we don't know yet. This is a developing story, just happened a short time ago. Facts are sparse. We just know that there's this FBI raid at former Ambassador Bolton's home in suburban Washington. Reporter heading to the scene. We will have more on this story as it develops. But again, certainly there have been some who have been concerned that President Trump would follow through on his promises of retribution. We don't know that's what's happened here. We will stay on this story as the morning continues.
Let's look at what the FBI Director Patel lists as the executive branch of the deep states. So members of the executive branch of the deep states. The list only includes current and former executive branch officials, and it's not exclusive. It does not, for example, include other corrupt actors. So, include other actors of the first order, such as Congressman Adam Smith. Okay, wait. It does not, for example, include other corrupt actors of the first order, such as Congressman Adam Smith and Eric Swalwell, members of the Fusion GPS or Parking Squad, Christopher Steele, Paul Ryan. Oh, Paul Ryan is the former Speaker of the House. The entire fake news mafia press corps. It is the alphabetical by last name. So the first of those executive list of the deep states that the director of FBI put together. So when those news guys are saying this might not be the last person that are going to go through this kind of investigation, this is what they're talking about. So we have Atkinson Michael, former intelligence community inspector general. We have Austin Lloyd, Secretary of Defense under President Biden. Yes, just he was sick, right? He was in the hospital for a minute. Out. Now, Bakari James, former General Counsel for the FBI, currently a member of the Brookings Institute for Deputy General Counsel at Twitter. Bob Hill, that's the former Attorney General, former Attorney General under President Trump. Bar. John Bolton, so they don't call it down. He's the one just being raided, being investigated. National Security Advisor under President Trump. Chief of Staff for Melania Trump. Oh, really? Kamala, Vice President of the United States of America. Espo Gina, former Director of the CIA under President Trump and current advisor at Kings and Spell Law Firm. Fiona Hill, former NS staffer who worked with Vendem Manila. Curtis Hill, FBI agent. Eric Holder, former Attorney General under President Obama and current senior counsel at Covington Law Firm. And Obama's best friend said that anyway. So those who let's talk about nepotism and whatever, it took him just because he was his best friend and made him Attorney General. Anyway, Robert Orr, special counsel to investigate Biden and former Pete under Rosenstein. We have Cassidy Hutchinson. These are legacy names. Hutchinson heads to Mark Meadow. Really. Nina Jacuzzi, former executive director of the Disinformation Governance Board in the Biden administration. Leo Lena, former director of the IRS under President Obama. Loretta Lynch, former Attorney General under President Obama. Charles Koppelman, former Deputy National Security under President Trump. Kenneth McKenzie, retired U.S. Marine Corps General and former commander of the United States Central Command. Andrew McCabe, former Deputy Director of the FBI under President Trump. Ryan McCarthy, former Secretary of the Army under President Trump. Mary McCoy, former Acting Assistant Attorney General for National Security at the DOJ and currently the Executive Director for the Georgetown Law Institute for Constitutional Advocacy. Peter Rozok, former Deputy Assistant Director of FBI Counterintelligence Division. Jake Sullivan, National Security Advisor under President Biden. Marcus Sussman, former legal representative for the Democratic National Committee and former partner at Parking Square Law Firm. Miles Taylor, former DHS official under President Trump, aka Anonymous. Timothy Theobald, former assistant special agent at the FBI Washington Field Office. Andrew Wiseman, former deputy under Special Counsel Mueller. Alexandra Vindman, former director of European Affairs on the NSA under President Trump. Christopher Wray, director of the FBI under President Biden, former partner at Kings and Spalding. Sally Yates, former Deputy Attorney General under President Obama, and briefly the Acting Attorney General under President Trump. I mean, there are many. So, God damn, how many of Stephen Boyd, Joe Biden is also included, president of the country, John Brennan, John Carly. Man, this nigga is funny. But anyway, all this one are to just bring them to submission. America must change. Institution must change. Anyway, so I got it. So it's getting spicier. Who next? Should be the question. Who next? Who's going in next? Ladies and gentlemen, who is going in next? Well, one would say they did it to the Trump administration. People like Stephen Bannon was to jail. Kilumpe Navarro also was in jail. So it's a game on situation. Game on. What's this?
Former FBI Special Agent Rob D'Amico. He is an MSNBC national security analyst. Rob, thank you for calling in. Details still pretty sparse, but give us your reaction to what we know so far.
Yeah, I always go off what my first instinct when I see a story. On this one, it was two-sided. I thought, wow, this is retribution. You know, they said they were going to do that. But then I look at it and say, wait a second, if you supported the Mar-a-Lago raid to try to get classified documents out that were tried to quietly gotten them before, then you kind of have to support it, and the administration or the FBI can reopen an investigation. There's nothing wrong with that. It's intent. And when you looked at the Mar-a-Lago raid, there was a quiet effort to get those documents back, and they tried and tried. So I would really, want to understand, was that done here, or was this show? Was this what they said they're going to do, so they want to come out and very openly say, this is what we're doing? It's been put out on X about not being above the law. I would say that goes to intent, but that's kind of the norm now. All the cabinet officials are just going straight to X when that wasn't done before. So I don't know if you can separate it by that, but I look at it as someone who's handled classified information, very highly sensitive stuff, every single day, and I was very careful with it. When I was in locations, I would have notebooks that weren't technically classified, but you're taking notes in a classified environment, and they stayed in that location, and I never brought them home. I never brought them to one other location, and then I had to burn them or shred them when I left there and couldn't bring them back. And I would want to look at, are we talking about documents that are stamped that he had in meetings that were openly classified, or are they going after a notebook, the notes on his book, notebooks that he took into meetings, because that's actually a lot harder to prove on the classified side when you take it to the court.
So, Rob, we now have footage here of Ambassador Bolton's home. It's in Bethesda, Maryland, which, for those who don't know the area, suburb just to the north and west of Washington, D.C. We see, looks like perhaps some neighbors or others standing out front of the home right now. So, Rob, talk to us about what this would have looked like. You obviously spent years with the FBI. What typically, or walk us through some scenarios. This is an early morning raid. We know that the FBI tends to favor that time of day. What are some options here? How could this have gone down? What would this raid have looked like?
Yeah, you always want to do them early in the morning. There's a number of reasons, but most likely that the person's asleep and not in a position to really react quickly to if they're at the door. Not that you're going to be able to destroy a lot of documents and stuff, but that's always the time you look at doing it. The national security ones, I've been brought in on raids that no one in the office even knew about. The SWAT team gets called in the middle of the night. We show up, they brief us, and we didn't even know the investigation was going on. But we're then there for a search warrant, and you knock on the door, you have the person come out. And again, the search warrant defines what you're allowed to look for. And in classified documents, you can actually look a lot because it can be on a thumb drive. So anywhere you can hide a thumb drive, you can search. So all those things are in there. It's going to lay out what documents you're looking for. What was the evidence, pointing you to those types of documents? Do they have, it was files, it was notebooks. So they're going to be looking in his office, but anywhere else where you could technically hide those, you're going to start looking at. And if they were up on text or something, you may have information like that saying where they are hidden or something like that, or emails back and forth that they went up on emails, say with his publisher, and he was talking about his book and his notes, that if that's what they're looking to go for. So those raids, though, you always do in the morning. You try to keep them quiet, but it's not going to happen. And the same thing, there's a lot of critical things on the Mar-a-Lago raid, how they did it. It wasn't the fact that they did it. It was very openly done. But there was a back effort. So, again, did they inform him beforehand trying to get these documents, couldn't get them, and then just finally did the raid? Or was it something like they had the investigation going, they got enough for a search warrant, and then they did the raid without telling them? Those will, I think, come out later on, as they did in the raids that were done before. But again, I support, if you really think there's documents out there. I was kind of surprised if John Bolton had documents, knowing when the administration came in and what they actually said they were going to do, why he didn't maybe get with somebody in DOJ to get documents that may have been misplaced and in his residence back to the government, because they did kind of announce they were going to look to do this, and in fact they did. And I think everyone else that talked about doing this too now really needs to pay attention and maybe go back to DOJ and try to work something out.
You're right. It's a great point. Of course, the search at Mar-a-Lago came only after months of back and forth negotiations, the federal government reaching out to President Trump's team. He was out of office at the time, to get back those documents. And only when those efforts were thwarted did agents go to the Palm Beach property. Also, to Rob's point, we have public officials in the Trump administration taking to X. We saw FBI Director Kash Patel, Attorney General Pam Bondi, and now Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino also tweeting, Bongino writing, "Public corruption will not be tolerated." There's Kash Patel. No one is above the law. FBI agents on mission. There's the Bongino tweet. So they're not specifically saying John Bolton, but it's pretty clear that's what it's about. Here's the Attorney General. "America's safety isn't negotiable," she writes. "Justice will be pursued always." Dan.
Fox News alert. Look at this. FBI agents raiding the Maryland home of former Trump National Security Advisor John Bolton. These images are live. That's video.
David Spunt joins us now with more on this breaking news. Hey, David.
Hey, good morning. We believe John Bolton was home. We're told that he is not in custody and he's not under arrest. The FBI not commenting, the Justice Department not commenting, but two senior government sources say that FBI agents are looking specifically for classified documents that may have been classified. Now, this is a live look at the street where this is all going down just outside Washington, D.C. in Maryland. It's unclear how long this raid will take place, but FBI Director Kash Patel put put out a cryptic post on social media this morning, and Attorney General Pam Bondi followed up with it. He says no one is above the law, FBI agents on a mission. Then she followed up talking about accountability. America's safety isn't negotiable. Justice will be pursued always. So it's not clear exactly how many documents they may be looking for, but we are told Bolton is not in custody. What's unclear, though, if he's being cooperative or not. We know, I said this about 20 minutes ago when I was on the air, his security clearances and his security detail that he had, a government subsidized security detail, was stripped by President Trump. He said that it was unnecessary. Bolton says that he is at risk from the Iran regime of potential assassination attempts or other sorts of plots. We've not yet heard from Ambassador Bolton, who served as President Trump's national security advisor in the first administration, but he's out there. He's been on TV recently. He just did an interview on another network a couple of days ago. A couple of weeks ago, he said on another network that he believes that the Justice Department is out for retribution and vengeance, and he believes that he will be a target. 2 weeks later, we see the FBI now gathering at his home in Bethesda, Maryland. But I want to point out that, this is very early in the process. We know that a magistrate judge would have had to sign off on this. The FBI doesn't just unilaterally decide to go into someone's home. Then this evidence, after it's analyzed, will be taken to a grand jury, and a grand jury will decide if there is enough evidence for federal charges. Guys.
David, have we seen them come out with anything? We keep seeing FBI agents going in. They've been there since 7, so an hour and 3 minutes. Have they retrieved anything?
I have not seen anybody come out with anything on camera yet, but we're told, yes, they are inside looking at documents. They will be leaving with boxes. I just have not personally seen anybody walk out with boxes, but we're told, yes, they are, and they may be looking at other sites connected to Ambassador Bolton. As far as any other people that may be targeted today, one senior official that I spoke to that has been briefed on this says it does not appear that that is so. It appears right now, and I want to always couch that it appears as of 8:03 in the morning that this is the only person that would be involved today, the only target involved today. So that's what we're looking at right now, guys.
So we know that you just mentioned that the FBI Director Kash Patel, 58 minutes ago, put out this: no one is above the law, FBI agents on a mission. And then Dan Bongino, the assistant FBI director, says 10 minutes later, public corruption will not be tolerated. That's interesting. And it's retweeting, it's building on Kash Patel's post.
It certainly is. And I will say that notably, and it might be a bit of a coincidence, and it's somewhat unrelated, probably very unrelated, but President Trump's, then former President Trump's home, when he was former president, Mar-a-Lago, was raided for classified documents, and that was a little bit more than 3 years ago. That was early August of 2022. And he was not home at the time. We're told Bolton was home today. But again, I'm told that he's not in any sort of custody or he's not under arrest. So it's very possible we may see him fly to a camera today, talk about this, put out some sort of statement, whether it be through his attorney or whether it be through whether it be something that he says himself.
So I'm assuming you've not seen the search warrant in this case, but you've seen other search warrants in cases like this.
Exactly.
The search warrant would include very specific things, outlining these kinds of documents that they're specifically looking for, or in maybe a computer, or maybe cell phones, things like that. But it would be very specified. There would be very specific things listed in that search warrant.
Absolutely, you're 100% right about that. And when the FBI agents raided Mar-a-Lago, they had a list, which was eventually made public, of what they were looking for. We will get a list here. We will see the document at some point of what specifically they're looking for. We're not going to see the information if it is indeed classified, but FBI agents are very careful in these situations. There's a team that, with the Washington field office, the local office here, that is painstakingly careful with all of this stuff. The FBI has to be, because it could come and bite the federal government when it comes to an actual court proceeding or a trial proceeding, and they want to win. They want to win if there does indeed become a federal trial out of this, so they have to be very careful, and they have an actual laundry list, just as you said correctly, of things that they are specifically looking for. So it's called probable cause. They believe they had the probable cause to go inside and find whatever they are specifically looking for. Now, it's possible when they're in there, they may find other items, and it's possible that those items could be taken into custody. So that's not clear. That's still early in the process. But certainly, it's not just a general, we think you have classified documents, please let us in. It doesn't work like that.
Do you have a sense of when you might be able to get your hands on that document? Is that something that will be forthcoming in a week, or does it depend on where the investigation goes?
It could be a little while. Yeah, it just depends on where the investigation goes. I remember the Trump documents happened several days later when we first found out, because this all is being run through a magistrate judge in Maryland, because that's where Ambassador Bolton lives in Maryland. So it would be a federal court system in Maryland. We would look at the documents, see what the documents say when they're posted. There'd be a case number assigned. This is just still so early in the process because it happened. So I suspect that, and it also just depends on the volume of documents here. I mean, are we talking 10 pages, 15 pages, or 100 pages? So it really just depends on the volume. But I would suspect nothing today. But, you know, things can happen very quickly if people want to make them happen quickly. But I would think probably not today.
All right, David, thanks so much. Tell us if anything breaks or moves. Let's bring in Fox News contributor, George Washington University law professor, Jonathan Turley. Jonathan, what do you think they have to have ahead of time in order to make this raid something palatable for a judge to sign off on?
Well, most importantly, they need a warrant. So that judge had to look at whether they had a particular list of evidence that they were trying to secure, and probable cause that a crime might have been committed. Now, that might is very important. There are plenty of raids that occur and charges do not occur as a result. But for a high visibility raid of this kind, I would think the administration waited until they had what they felt was a lead pipe cinch of a case for a warrant and a strong case to move forward. We just don't know. This is going to be clearly a warrant seeking documents. And I can tell you, as a criminal defense attorney who's had clients subject to search warrants, documents tend to be particularly burdensome for defendants because they basically hoover up everything in the house that could contain digital or written material. That includes thumb drives and computers, laptops, desktops, phones. All of those things are ordinarily sought that can have any type of digital memory or storage. And you are given a copy of that warrant, and you're ultimately given an inventory of things that are removed. And what follows that is a long process of inspection. Now, in the case of Bolton, there's going to be very sensitive issues there. One is he's clearly a critic of President Trump. And so there's going to be concerns whether this is retaliatory. But in the same fashion, there's going to be material on his computer that he's going to argue is protected speech, maybe even privileged material. So they might have to create these walls that are put up, have separate teams to minimize any intrusion into privileged or protected areas.
Yeah, Jonathan, I remember when Mar-a-Lago was raided and Melania had said that they even went through her closet, they went through her drawers. It can be very intrusive, but I know when you're the FBI and you're looking for any evidence, you have to look everywhere. He's been accused of using classified information in his book that he wrote in 2020. Do you know what was in that book, what classified information he wasn't supposed to share?
Yeah, that's what is intriguing here, because these are long-standing allegations that the book indicated or referenced classified material that he may have acquired when he was in the administration. We're not clear as to what that is, but it would suggest that it could be national defense information. The reason that's important is that creates a heightened potential penalty. So you can have penalties that range from 5 to 20 years. 20 years tends to be the sentences for concealing information, obstructing justice. Simply having classified information can weigh in at about 10 years. And there are often multiple counts because each of those documents can be charged separately. So there is a strange history here. So you had these allegations coming out as early as the first Trump administration. Then there was an allegation that the Biden administration essentially scuttled a further look at this case. Right. And now we have this new development. But we really don't know if there's something that has occurred most recently, whether they uncovered something that they believed is sort of evergreen, that this is still a viable criminal case.
So something tells me that the political world is probably going to be weighing in on this within a few minutes. But does it, going back to what you just said a minute ago, does it give some sort of further credence to the Trump administration that they had a lot of questions back before the book came out? The Trump administration, the first Trump administration, had serious concerns about much of what went into that book. And I think that their concerns were raised after he submitted the book, The Room Where It Happened, to the government to take a look at some of, to give clearance to some of the passages in there. Does it give the Trump administration, the current one, any sort of credence or credibility that they laid the marker down previously, that they had problems with some of these concerns well before, not that Bolton hadn't turned on the Trump administration earlier, but well before he turned into the critic that he is today?
Very messy in terms of regulations. You're supposed to get pre-approval if you are relying upon information you acquired, particularly that's classified. I don't know what occurred in any pre-review.
I think they held up the release. They tried to.
Yeah. And so there's obviously a record there of disagreement. What I'm intrigued about is why now? And, you know, the other side is going to say, look, this guy's persona non grata. There are a few people that Trump dislikes more than John Bolton. He really became a very fervent anti-Trump critic during the campaign. And so there's going to be close scrutiny as to whether there is an independent and legitimate basis to take this step. We're going to find out in the coming couple of weeks as to what led them to move on the House to acquire this evidence. But as you noted, this has been a long-standing bone of contention between Bolton and the administration.
Jonathan, maybe I've watched too many movies. What does it look like inside the house when they're having this raid? I mean, we see in the movies, the papers are everywhere. They go through every drawer. They leave a mess.
They usually do leave a mess. I had a client where they showed up at his house. He was a scientist at like 3 a.m, and the kids were screaming, and they were trying to calm the kids while these agents just tore apart the house. So it can be, it can truly be traumatic, particularly if you have young children, which is not the case here. But these FBI agents have a right to go in there. So unless it's a no-knock warrant, which wouldn't be a case, I can't imagine they had a no-knock warrant here. If you have a no-knock warrant, right, they can take that door off its hinges because they believe that someone in the house could be a threat to the officers. There's no reason to suggest that here. So normally there's a knock on the door. They do go through de-escalation. They don't want to have a confrontation. There's a lot of people that have firearms. Bolton may have private security, so you don't want to have any missed signals here that someone's trying to get into the house of a protected person. And then once they're inside, they move pretty darn quickly, and they ask you to step aside, and you can observe them, but you cannot get in their way. And often it is very messy. Now, in a document search of this kind, they're going to sweep through that house and grab anything that has any storage capacity at all. In some of my clients' case, where they're looking for physical evidence, it can look like your house was hit by a tornado. I mean, they will take apart mattresses, furniture, and they don't go back and clean it up. They take what they need and they leave.
Remember what they did at Mar-a-Lago? They stacked up the documents that they wanted to. They took a picture of it.
That's right. I remember that.
And they acted like that Donald Trump left a mess. No, it was them that left a mess. Right. And they decided to take a picture. Thanks, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my